welcome back to Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura, and today is my first monthly wrap-up. It is my January reading wrap-up, and I will be doing these every month from now on, so I'm super excited about it. And this month, I read 8 books, which is pretty impressive, I think. I was surprised I read 8 books. One of them was a novella, so that was 100 pages, but still, 8 books is still a substantial amount of reading. I'm not quite sure how that happened, aside from, audiobooks are a great help, right? Those are amazing because you can listen to them while doing so many different things, multitasking. So I'm sure that's part of the reason why it helped me be able to read more books. But I will show the 8 books right here on the side. And I made this for my Instagram, by the way, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I'll be making one like this every month for my wrap-ups. Anyway, these are the 8 books I read. They are listed in chronological order, and only one of these books that I read this month was a 5-star read. Although I've been kind of iffy. There's 2 other books that I've debated giving 5 stars, but one book is for sure a 5-star book. So before I get into my list, I would like you guys to comment down below and guess which of these books was a 5-star read. And also, when I talk about these books, I will not be talking about them in order in which I read them. I will instead be talking about them from the book I rated the lowest to the book I rated the highest. And for this month and future months, just because a book is my lowest rated for the month, it's not like I hated the book. It's just wasn't the highest rated book. Anyway, so comment down below which one you think was a 5-star read. And also, the book that was a 5-star read, literally, less than an hour ago, I was bidding on it on eBay, and I lost the bid, and honestly, I'm kind of sad about it. All week, I was looking forward to getting this book and winning the bid, and then in the last 10 minutes, it went up like crazy. Literally, it might have been the last 8 minutes. So it was at the last minute, people were bidding like crazy, and it ended up going super high, which in some ways, it sold for over $1,000. So in some ways, I'm I can't bring myself to pay that much for a book. So in some ways, I'm glad it sold for so much, because if it had sold for $300, $400, there's a part of me that's oh man, if only I went a little bit higher. But because it sold for over $1,000, I'm well, there's no way I would have bid that high. So I guess I never had a chance. Anyway, I was still kind of bummed I didn't get the book, but I'm sure I'll come across it again in the future, right? Anyway, I could always buy the paperback because this was for the hardcover edition, first edition. So there are paperback editions available. If you know my channel, you know I prefer hardcover books for my collection. That's enough of me venting about that. So yeah, guess what book that was down in the comments. And now to get right into my monthly wrap-up. The book that comes in number 8 is The Snowman by Jo Nesbø. My book first movie comparison of this came out last week. So I will link to that down below. And in my book first movie comparison, there's a section. I always do a book review within the book first movie episodes. So if you want to hear me talk more in depth and you don't mind spoilers, then you can go check out my book review section of my book first movie episode. Anyway, to keep it brief, The Snowman it's a Harry Hole detective novel, and he is trying to find the serial killer, the Snowman. And it takes place in Norway, which is kind of cool. So I'm trying to read more foreign authors this month. And The Snowman wasn't even me trying to find a foreign author. I just wanted to read the book, and then I was oh, sweet, it's also by a Norwegian person. Anyhow, so this book, one of the reasons I didn't like it was just that it was more graphic than I had expected, more gruesome, and that's just not my thing. And some people might think that it wasn't even that bad. But for me personally, I just wasn't a fan. And so even though the book was entertaining enough, I just don't see myself ever reading another book by Jo Nesbø. Also, I figured out who the killer was, or I suspected who it was very early on. And throughout the whole book, nothing ever happened that made me second guess that. And I was right. And when I'm reading a mystery, I want to be kept on my toes. And I don't want to guess so early on. I want to be kept guessing, So that was kind of disappointing that it seems so obvious. So that is The Snowman, and that is why it comes in last on the books I read this month. I gave it a 2.5 on Goodreads, which honestly isn't terrible. 2.5 is decent. I just didn't love it, obviously. But I can see why other people would. And which, by the way, speaking of Goodreads, if you want to follow me on Goodreads, I will link to that down below as well. This year I'm trying to give reviews for every book I read and be more on top of my reviews on Goodreads. Anyway, on to number 7 on this list. So this one is Since September by Shannon Hovey. And she is a YouTuber, and this is how I found out about her book, was through her YouTube channel. So that was really cool. So it was really cool reading a book that she had written. This is the one that is the novella, so it's like 100 pages. But it's a quick read, it's very entertaining and very interesting, and I really enjoyed reading it. It does, like, I talk about this in my Goodreads review, but like at the halfway point, it does kind of switch gears, and suddenly it feels almost like it's becoming a different book, almost like it has a different vibe to it. So that kind of threw me off, but it was still a great read. Definitely recommend. And it's less than 100 pages, so it's not like it's a daunting page count. So yeah, I gave that one 3 stars, I think. And yeah, so that is Since September. And also this one is about a woman who is like 20 years old, I think. And she, you know, has past drama with her mom. And then I don't know how much to say without having spoilers because it is a short book. I don't know, like the big event that happens, I guess wouldn't be a spoiler, but it's a thriller and it's kind of scary at times. But it's about a girl who's going a little crazy, I guess, and she has mom drama going on. But yeah, it was a really fun read, and I really enjoyed it. Number 6 on the list is The Hustler by Walter Tevis. Walter Tevis also wrote The Queen's Gambit, which was turned into a hugely popular Netflix show like a year ago or 2 years ago now. But he also wrote The Hustler, and I believe this is the first book he ever wrote. And I gave it 3.5 stars. It's about a pool player, a pool shark, and he wants to play the best pool player there is in Chicago, play Minnesota Fats. Obviously, there's more to it, like more character. It's more of a character study in some ways, I guess. And I enjoyed the book, but I've seen the movie many times. My book versus movie comparison for this will be out in March. And so this is a little sneak peek because I like the movie better. And the book, it was good. I don't know. I wasn't super engaged in the story. I am going to read the sequel, The Color of Money, because as I said, I think this was the first book he wrote. So I'm sure he gets better as his writing goes on. And so I'm curious to read The Color of Money, and maybe I would like that even better. But yeah, so this was 3.5, and even 3.5 was probably a little generous for me because other reviewers so many people loved this book and were praising it so much. And so I felt like I should give it a higher review, but I don't know. It definitely isn't a 4-star read. I feel like it's probably more of a 3-star read if I'm being honest. But then they made it into this fantastic movie. So then because I love the movie so much, I feel bad giving the book a lower rating. But I don't know, 3.5 stars for this one. Up next is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Everybody has at least heard of this book, if you haven't read it. And it is about Esther, who has a mental breakdown, basically. And that's what it's about. And it was published in 1961, I believe. And so at the time, you know, I'm sure this spoke to a lot of women at the time because books like this weren't being written. And even today, it really speaks to specifically women on like a deep level, but it didn't really speak to me on a deep level. And so I gave it 3.5 stars. I think maybe if I did more research into the book, it could help me appreciate it more. I mean, I listened to the audiobook, Maggie Gyllenhaal, she was incredible. And then at the end of the audiobook, we get in this afterword that talks about Sylvia Plath and her life and her writing. And that was really interesting. And I knew Sylvia Plath had committed suicide. And so I was listening to this book with that in mind and how this book is like semi-autobiographical. And yeah, it just didn't speak to me though. And that's fine. Not every book is going to speak to everybody, right? Everybody has their different tastes and the different things they've experienced in their personal life that make one book speak to them, but another doesn't. And I mean, I've struggled with depression, but I've never had a breakdown per se. And so, I don't know. And Esther, some of the things she said and did, it just came off as being selfish and self-centered. So I had a hard time with that too, really connecting with her character at times. However, it was a well-written book and it kept me interested throughout. I was never bored. I did enjoy the writing style. And yes, it is Catcher in the Rye-esque. Having said that, I should reread Catcher in the Rye because it's been quite a while. It's been over 10 years since I read that. So maybe I shouldn't jump the gun and say it's Catcher in the Rye-esque when it's been so long since I've even read Catcher in the Rye. Anyway, this book, it just wasn't for me personally, but I can understand why others love it so much. And it was well written. And Sylvia Plath, you know, sometimes people, when they have such a tragic life, their works are looked up to even more so, which makes sense. But even though I didn't love this book, I would love to own the first edition copy because she published it under a pseudonym. It was like Victoria something. But I think it would be so cool to own the first edition copy of this. It was printed in the UK because that's where she was living at the time. So I would love to own the first UK edition that is printed under her pseudonym. That would be so awesome. I saw it on eBay, but it was like $1,500. So we'll see. But I would love to have that book in my collection. Number 4 on the list is The Tender Bar by J.R. Moringer. And we are now getting into my 4-star plus books. Like this one, I gave it 4 stars. But I'm tempted to bump it up to 4.5. It's a memoir. I love memoirs. And it is about JR's life. And it starts out when he's a childhood and we see into, throughout the decades. And he did not have a father who was around very much. And so at an early age, he really looked up to his uncle who was a bartender in a bar. And so he just idolized this bar and was kind of obsessed with it for a long time. And he just, all the men from the bar he befriended and became father figures to him. And yeah, it's about him as he goes through life. And it also is about alcoholism in some ways, because a lot of the people in the bar are alcoholics and JR himself struggles with alcoholism. However, it's not written in like the norm, I don't know, like because he is still able to look back fondly on some memories and joke about them, which I guess isn't that unusual. I don't know, but it's not like this heavy, sad book about addiction or something, like because he has a lot of funny stories, a lot of entertaining stories, a lot of heartwarming stories. He has some sad stories too, but he has a good variety in there. And yeah, it's a great story. It's very well written. It's a bit lengthy, and maybe there were a few times when I was like, maybe getting a little bored. Like, I feel like he focuses too much on this girl he becomes obsessed with in college. Her name is Sydney, I think. And so some of the stuff with her, it's like, geez, get over her already. And so he got so hung up on her. So I guess the parts with that I wasn't loving quite as much. But nonetheless, this is 4 stars, maybe 4.5 star read for me. I really enjoyed it. They made it into a movie, which depending on when I post this video, my book first movie might already be out. If it's, I'll retroactively include links in here, though, for all these books for my book first movie comparisons. Anyway, the movie is on Amazon starring Ben Affleck. I can't remember, Ty Sheridan, I think, plays JR. But yeah, so definitely check out my book first movie comparison because there are a lot of changes between the two. And yeah, I loved this book. It was fantastic. Up next, my 3rd book on the list, and 3 and 2, the book that came in 3rd place and 2nd place. I had a really hard time with these two, like the order in which they go. The Tender Bar, it was kind of hard with that one too, but ultimately I put it in 4th place and it stayed there. But this one, like these two are so interchangeable. My number 1 book is solid in its number 1 place, but yeah, 2 and 3 I had a hard time with. But for now, this book, it comes in number 3, and that is The Double by Jose Saramago. This one, I think I gave 4 stars, but again, this is definitely a 4.5 star read. I don't know, this makes me feel like it should come in 2nd place. But here we are listing it at 3, so whatever. Anyway, this is about a man who watches a movie and he sees one of the side characters, or like a background actor, is his double, looks exactly like him. And so then this causes a series of events as these two men meet who are identical. And this one, like when I finished the book, I did not know what to think about it. And so I didn't know what to rate it when I first finished it. However, that was like 2 weeks ago now, and I've had time to analyze it, and it was based on a movie, so I will, again, that won't be out till the end of February, so I will have to retroactively link to that. But the movie is Enemy, directed by Denis Villeneuve, so definitely look out for my book first movie for that, because I also have a guest. The host of the Forgotten Cinema podcast came on that episode to talk to me about Enemy, to talk with me about Enemy. So that will be at the end of February. Anyway, The Double, the book that the movie was based on, the more time I've had to process it and think about it and analyze it, the more I like it. And so I'm tempted to give it 5 stars because, it's a slow burn, but there's just so much to think about. So much symbolism. Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting the way it was written though. Like dialogue could be confusing because it's like a run-on sentence and the dialogue is separated through commas. So it can be like hard to get used to the writing style in that sense. But yeah, I love this book. It was so interesting and intriguing. And then the end of the book, you're just like, what was that even about? What happened? What is going on here? Same with the movie in some ways, if you've seen the movie. But the book and movie are fairly different. But yeah, highly recommend this book. please read this so that we can talk about it, because even though I've done my analysis of it, there are still things that I'm just not sure about. So, and I can't find anyone else who's read this book. There was one person on Reddit who read it. One person on Reddit who has read this book. And so their insight really helped. But I would love to get even more of a conversation going. So please, anyone who has read The Double, please comment. Well, I don't want you to give spoilers to other people, but either comment on this video in some way without giving away too many spoilers, I guess. Or you could save it for my book versus movie comparison, and you can hear my thoughts on the book and what I thought it all meant. And you can comment on there, include all the spoilers you want, and we can have a conversation going about this. But if you never read the book, I'm giving you like 3 weeks now. You can read this book in advance before my book versus movie episode comes out. Anyway, that's my rant on The Double, which was a fascinating book. And yeah, and this one was written by a Portuguese author, which again, I wanted to cover the movie, and then I was like, oh, and it's written by a foreign author. So cool. So getting my goal of reading more foreign authors. Anyway, so that is The Double. 4.5 stars, maybe 5. And again, my number 2 book, it's very interchangeable with The Double, and that is Cold Mountain by Charles Fraser. I gave this one, I bounced around again with what to give this one. I was like 4 stars, 5 stars, no 4 stars, no 4.5 stars. And I think I'm settling on 4.5 stars. In which case, maybe Cold Mountain should be number 3 and The Double should be number 2. Anyway, Cold Mountain is a retelling of the Odyssey. And so we have Inman in place of Odysseus, who is making his way home he's a deserter of the Civil War, and he makes his way home to Ada, a woman he doesn't know that well, but he had been courting her before the war. And so we go back and forth between what he experiences on his journey home, as well as seeing what's going on with Ada, who is a rich, not spoiled, but she's a rich city girl who is learning how to live on a farm with no one to help her. Well, no men to help her, because a very important character, Rose, comes to help her run this farm, and the two of them form a close sisterly bond, and they run this farm together. And even though their personalities are so different, they just make a great team. So yeah, so we go back and forth between what's happening with Ada and Inman, and this book is beautifully written. And once I didn't go into it knowing it was a retelling of the Odyssey, but once I realized that, things clicked into place, and I started loving it even more. And my book versus movie comparison for this will be out next week. The movie stars Jude Law, Nicole Kidman, and Renee Zellweger, along with a ton of other celebrities that have smaller roles in it, because at the time maybe they weren't as famous as they are now. But I love the movie, I love the book, both are fantastic, so definitely listen to my book versus movie comparison next week, because you can hear me just talk about how much I enjoyed both of them, as well as learning the differences between the two. Anyway, so Cold Mountain, highly recommend. 4.5 stars is my for sure rating for this one. And now, I guess you already know what the number 1 book is based on the list from earlier, and that is Power of the Dog by Thomas Savage. This book was written in the 60s, but not many people knew about it until the movie was made. It was released last year, and it's got 3 SAG awards. And I'm obviously posting this before the Oscar nominations have been released, but I'm sure it will get nominated for a few Oscars, and it deserves it because the movie is fantastic. But the book is incredible. I finished it in 2 days. It's not that long, but I also just could not put it down. And the characters are fantastic. The writing is incredible. And you just feel it. There's so many uncomfortable scenes, awkward social interactions, and just so many uncomfortable scenes, and you feel so uncomfortable for these characters. And then there's one character who is just not a good person. And if a book can make you feel strong emotions towards a fictional character, whether they're positive or negative, that's impressive. And I felt such strong negative emotions for this character. So yeah, you want a book to make you feel strongly about things. And this book had me feeling it. And I love the title too, The Power of the Dog, which it comes from the scripture, "Save my soul from the sword and my darling from the power of the dog," which is just so beautiful and eloquent. And yeah, this book is fantastic. Highly, highly recommend. Things end up going into, if you haven't seen the movie and if you don't know even what the movie's about, that's the best, to go into this book not knowing what it's about. And it does kind of go in a direction I hadn't been anticipating, but I loved it the whole time. It's an amazing book. And this is the one that I was bidding on in eBay. And literally in 5 minutes time, this book went from costing $250 to $1,200 and something. And so, man, all week long, I was looking forward to having that book and showing it off on my channel and being so proud to have it in my collection. And then within the span of 5 minutes, it went totally out of reach. But, you know, I'm sure I'll come across it someday, and maybe I'll come across it for a decent price, or maybe I'll just come into some money and be willing to spend lots of money on this book. I don't know. But yeah, I'm still feeling disappointed about that one. I could buy the paperback edition, but paperbacks just aren't as exciting as the hardcover. Anyway, enough of me pouting. Power of the Dog. Fantastic. 5-star read. Highly recommend. I love the movie as well. Yeah, my book versus movie comparison for this will be out first Wednesday in March, so definitely stay tuned for that. And I'm giving you a month in advance where you can read the book in preparation for that episode. But highly, highly recommend reading this. And the movie was fantastic as well, so highly recommend both. Yeah, I was going to get into the differences between the two, but I should stop myself and save that for the episode. And yeah, that wraps it up on the 8 books I read this month. Number 1 being Power of the Dog. And then in February, I will do a monthly wrap up. And again, I will pick which was the best book of February. And then my February pick and Power of the Dog will go up against each other. And I will pick which one I like the best out of those two. And I will continue that every month. When I get to my December wrap up, I will have chosen the best book of the entire year. So that'll be kind of cool because each month, you know, they'll go head to head and I'll have to pick which one I liked better, if that makes sense. So I'm excited about this. I think it's a fun idea for my wrap-ups. Last year, I never picked an ultimate best book of the year because I was just like, that's too hard. I can't do it. But I'm going to force myself to pick a favorite for this year. And yeah, so that wraps it up on my wrap-up. Subscribe and like this video and comment down below. If you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts on them and if you agree with my ratings or not. Again, subscribe to this channel so you can stay up to date with my new book versus movie episodes. Those are like my most, I don't know, that's what got me started with this whole channel, was doing book versus movie comparisons on a podcast. And then I turned that podcast into a YouTube channel. So that's what really got this going. And that's kind of the focus of this channel, but I do a lot of book content as well, such as this. Anyway, so more book content than movie content, but my book versus movies are something I love doing. I love doing all these videos though, like this one was a lot of fun too. Anyway, you get the point. You should subscribe and like my channel and watch my videos. Check out my playlist that I have. I also have an amazing book collection, as you can tell by my ranting about losing out on Power of the Dog and about wanting that Sylvia Plath book that is published under a pseudonym. So I love my book collection. I have videos where I show off my book collection. And if that interests you, you should check it out. I also have a book tag, book collection book tag, this way. And if you're a book collector, you should definitely do it. Even if you don't have a YouTube channel, you can comment your answers and enter to win a $50 eBay gift card. And that is going until February 14th. So you have about 2 weeks left to enter to win. And I just love talking about books and hearing other people and hearing about their book collections. So I'd love you to do the book tag, whether you are a YouTuber or not. You have the opportunity to do it by commenting on the video. Anyway, I guess I've been talking enough and I will go ahead and end this and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching this video.